ProQuest Yokohama season continues to roll on, and while we haven't yet seen the data for week 5 of ProQuest season, one thing is very certain, and that is that players are not quite happy with one specific hero. Maybe two, but one has been the talk of the town this past weekend, and that is Cindra, Drakai of Retribution. And if you didn't pay attention to any Flesh and Blood over the weekend, the Calling Sydney was full of Cindras all over the place, including in the top 8. Because as you can see here, the top 8 was full of them. You had 8th seed, 4th seed, you had the 7th seed, you had the 3rd seed, and the 6th seed, all playing Cindra, Drakai of Retribution. That's a lot of Cindra taking up the top tables, and there were a couple of heroes that were not Cindra, and 2 of those heroes being Verdance, the other hero that I think people are pointing at and talking about being an annoying hero to play against, perhaps. Even though I'm actually kind of like totally fine with the way that the meta has shaped itself with these top 3 heroes, but I understand the staleness of it, and I understand the problematic nature of the meta, which we will talk about a little bit later. And then shout out to Liam Bennett for putting up some pretty sick games with Prism Awakener of Soul. And it would not be a super huge spoiler, perhaps, to tell you that this event was indeed won by one of those 5 Cindra players. I will not disclose who actually ended up picking it up, but just keep this in mind, that Cindra had a fantastic weekend, and it kept people asking the question of, like, where is this deck placed on the overall power level of all of the heroes? Like, what can we compare this to, this meteoric rise and this steady, like, stable execution, even if you want to put it that way, of the deck from season to season. And look, I'll be honest, I can show you the data and we can talk about sort of the comparisons between other heroes. I've made my fair share of Cindra videos because she's been that good for that long, and a lot of people are kind of poo-pooing the 0.5x multiplier idea and all that. But I think the best thing we can talk about with this is the relation between Cindra and Aurora, because if you look at Aurora's graph, and if you can kind of see that through all of the other lines, Aurora had this rise, this very strong like rise here, and then a steady kind of like plateauing, and then another rise after that, including the run up to when she actually hit the limit of 1,000 points for her Living Legend status. And a similar thing took place with Cindra. We've had these steady rises, but just keep this in mind. This graph isn't going to look exactly the same because of that 0.5x multiplier. And a lot of people are very, astutely pointing out that if that 0.5x multiplier didn't exist, then Cindra would actually be way up here. And this graph would essentially be amplified in a very similar pattern to what Aurora had. So they're not too far off. We'll put it that way. They're not too far off. So this is a fine analog, the two of them together. And a lot of people are complaining about the 0.5x multiplier because of this. They're saying that this hero is too good, therefore if the 0.5x multiplier was removed, she'd almost be Living Legend and we'd be rid of her. I think that's the wrong thing to approach this with. That's the wrong take, because the 0.5x multiplier, the point of it was to essentially allow LSS the run-up time to prevent, through banning and restricting and other stuff like that, prevent this from happening, where Aurora blinks out of existence. And I think people are looking at this data and they're thinking to themselves, well, screw the 0.5x multiplier, just get the hero out of here. And instead, I think the answer should really be, what can we do to bring Cindra down? And again, I think this is the wrong side to take, because I don't necessarily, and I think I'm going to get flamed for this, but I don't necessarily think that Aurora really needs to be throttled down on power level. I think it's the perfect storm of the situation. Let me show you why I say that. The meta for week number 1 in Classic Constructed looked like this. It was Gravy Bones, it was Cindra, it was Verdance. So obviously Cindra's there, obviously Gravy Bones there, obviously Verdant's there. Those were the three heroes that everyone kind of expected, and I think maybe not kind of expected. Maybe those were the three heroes that put themselves at the top of the meta, and it didn't stop after week 1, because once we go past week 1, week 2 looked very similar, except now Gravy fell off a good bit more, and Verdant's plus Cindra make up the top 2, with KO and Gravy Bones and Acilio and some others, smattering of other heroes there at the top. And then, of course, you have Cindra in week 3 taking control of the format, followed by Verdance, and then Gravy Bones makes his way back up, and KO is there lurking at number 4. And then finally, this was last week, not the weekend we just ended, but the previous one. Week 4 looked like this. It was Verdance, followed by Cindra and Gravy Bones back to where he was before. This is what I mean. Those three heroes are very clearly the three best heroes in the format, and they're, like we've talked about in videos before, they are a true triangle meta. They are making up this perfect triangle that in essence is trying to counter one to the other, right? Like Cindra is trying to beat Gravy Bones is trying to beat Verdance is trying to beat Cindra, and the ring goes around, right, in this perfect circle. It's like poetry, it rhymes. But the point being that those three heroes uniquely fight each other, and then if you were to counter or to attempt to counter one of those heroes, and this is really the thing, if you were to attempt to counter one of those heroes, the other two heroes almost push you out of the meta for countering the one hero. And this is why I say I'm not really sure that Cindra actually needs this treatment where they go, and they, do the 0.5 and then they like nerf to try and keep that. The 0.5, X system is there in place to, allow the hero to have a longer lifespan and to, you really hit the heroes that, give you the time, I should say, to hit the heroes that need it so that you don't blink out of existence, akin to Aurora. But when I say that she doesn't need bans, the problem isn't that she's so overpowered that it just sits on top of the other heroes, because there's two other heroes that sit alongside of her in some respects. The problem is that those other heroes are keeping her natural counters down. That is the fundamental issue with Cindra in my mind. And I could be way off base here, but really the issue that I see with Cindra is that her natural counters, like frost bites in the form of Jarl, and like on-hit effects that rip her hand apart, like Guardians, those types of heroes just can't exist if Gravy Bones is there and if Verdance is there, because they get eaten alive by those two decks. And consequently, there are other heroes that do a similar thing to some of those, like Verdances and Gravies, that Cindra just eats up. Like, it's this interesting perfect triangle that they all protect each other and they all have some amount of game into the other, but like they naturally fall to one of the 3 points. It truly is the perfect storm for Cindra to just kind of gobble up points, because I feel like Cindra maybe benefits from being able to beat both of those other heroes perhaps better than they can beat the other two, right? That's the crazy part. And so it begs the question, like going back to this graph, is it time for them to, make some sort of a Cindra nerf? Or are you almost better served like pulling all three heroes down in some way, shape, or form so that natural counters have a better time into, each of the other heroes that are protecting the hero? Like, it's a crazy question, but I think a lot of people are, looking at this point total, they're going through the data here, and we don't know week number 5. It could end up that Cindra's on top. It could end up that, she shifts around, but we just don't, like, what do you do here? From the LSS perspective, do you pull all of them down? I mean, it makes some sense that you would think, oh, let's pull all 3 heroes down and move on with our lives, and then maybe some other heroes can come up. Are you doing very specific targeted bans? What would you ban? Like, what are you going to ban? Wrath of Retribution, like, is that your choice? Are you like, you should not have Wrath of Retribution as a singular card? You only get one of them, but it's still, the turn is way too powerful? Leave that comment down below. Is that what you want to do to Cindra? Are you more of the opinion that you just let, take the 0.5x multiplier away going forward and like let the hero ride off if they're, like doing the Aurora thing and she just kind of goes when she goes? I don't like that. I've heard so many people this week in Discords, in person, and on stream chats talking about how the 0.5x multiplier is stupid. I actually think that it's so necessary for you to actually be able to play a hero and feel confident that your hero is not just going to go away if it turns out that they're really good in a specific meta, right? It gives a new hero the opportunity to be pulled back down into parity with others if they turn out to be overtuned, which is a good thing from a design perspective, because if you screw up, then you don't have players just leaving the game when their hero goes off, right? Because you can control that a little bit more, and you have the ability to change things at a reasonably quicker pace because you can see the data coming up. But are they actually going to do that? Like, what do they change? What do you change in Verdance? What do you pull out of that deck to bring its power level down? Do you buff another hero or another set of heroes to try and attack that triangle meta? That's the really curious thing. And is Gravy Bones like really a gatekeeping deck that you need to somehow pull its power level down so that Guardians can play the game? The answer might be yes, right? Like that's a really intriguing question to ask. And obviously none of this is going to happen before Worlds, because the Worlds stage at this point is really pretty well set. I mean, you've got like 2.5 weeks until the actual event. Depending on when you're watching this, like it could be right down the road. So you can't really mess with the meta now. So when do they do it, right? It's a crazy state right now to be in the Flesh and Blood metagame, going into Worlds and knowing that all of this data has been collected, and the rest of the field is what it is. I mean, at this point, you could bring Prism to try and combat some of this. You could bring your Kasai's of the world. You could try to bring Jarl and dodge some of the, but like, where do you go from here? It's a bold question to ask, and it's one I'm asking you. What would you do in this situation if you're sitting from the LSS perspective, and if you're playing in Worlds? Let me know what you would do down in a comment below. And of course, if you like this start to your week and you want more videos like this, make the number go to the other number, because that's what we do here on this channel. We make numbers go up, generally not down, hopefully most of the time up. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.